Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another month of the Fearless Women Becoming series. My name is Christine Culligan. I'm one of the Shetty certified coaches and part of Fearless Women, which is a wonderful group of women from around the globe that are all certified life coaches. And we all have the opportunity to share with each other and with people around the globe, hopefully on these types of platforms where we get to discuss topics such as parenting and relationships with loved ones. We had a session last month on financial independence. So we've got all of these topics that we do once a month. And this month, Prina, if you would mind sharing the screen, the next page. This month's topic is parenting and family dynamics. So before we get into the introductions, I wanted to just say welcome. So I know this is being recorded. It's going to be also on our YouTube channel. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'd like to introduce who's on the call today. Prina, next slide, please. So my name is Christine Culligan. I'm one of the, like I said, life coaches that's part of Fearless Women. I live in St. Louis, Missouri. The niche that I have chosen from as a life coach is balance and well-being. And the reason I chose that, and I was just interviewed on another one of the YouTube platforms for Fearless Women. I was interviewed last month. The reason I chose balance and well-being is because everybody deals with being out of balance in life, whether that's work or relationships, right? I think women struggle with it maybe more, probably because of just maybe what society's put on us and what we've chosen that our responsibilities are. And so we put ourselves last. So I have asked myself, what is my niche? And it's balance and well-being, because well-being is mentally, physically, spiritually, it's everything. So I pretty much cover the gamut for my clients. But like I said, St. Louis, Missouri in the United States. So I'd like to introduce now Prina Shah. Would you like to really quick say hi to everyone?
Hey everyone, I am Prina Shah. I am also a Shetty certified life coach, focused on holistic growth coaching, where I focused on creating that growth journey, but also making sure that it's holistic, it's well balanced. So, especially for women, if they're trying to grow in their career, even if they are stay at home women, if they are trying to find meaning, what they like to do in their life. So, trying to figure out their growth journey, but also keeping that balance in their, in mind, how to create that uh, if they are working mom again, not feeling guilty about going to work, but trying to find the balance about how they can juggle and progress in their career, but also create that nice balanced life that they can have time for their kids, family, and the things that they'd like to do. So that's me, holistic growth coach.
Thank you. All right, let's see who's up next. Nisha, do you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Nisha. I'm also a Jay Shetty certified coach. I call myself the growth architect because what I help, mainly female clients as well, but what I help the group do is define success, what it means to them in the next chapter of their lives. So we think very short term. We don't think many years out, just what the next season is meant to look like. And we come up with a very realistic, doable action plan for them so that they can jump into making it happen. More so get out of the overthinking and focus on executing. That's it.
Thank you, Nisha. And then finally, we have Nic Ott.
Right. So because we're like a full house of Jay Shetty certified life coaches, so I'm also one, and my focus is on parenting. My business is called The Parent Mentor because they have most of my, besides all the training that we've all gone through to be certified life coaches, I really feel like being able to make an impact with parents then affects not just the singular individual, but actually affects the whole family unit. And then, if you set up children to have all of the skills that their parents are just learning now, then you don't have to have that later. So maybe I'm working myself out of a job, but it seems like a good way to make a big impact.
Very nice. Thank you, Nic. Thank you, everyone. Next slide, please, Prina. So quickly, we're just going to go over the topic overview for today. There's lots of slides, but it's going to be a really good discussion because we live this, right? So the first topic we're going to discuss is balancing work and personal life. Hands up if you ever have that mastered. That's always like an everyday. Oh, all right, Nisha. See, I'm glad you're
Well,
on the call today.
I
Team
was
Shake.
shaking my head like I don't have this
Oh, you
mastered.
don't have it. Oh,
Who has this
well,
mastered?
okay. So that's pretty much where we're at, n of zero that have that mastered. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, co-parenting strategies. This one's doable for sure. All right, next one, please. And nurturing healthy relationship with children. I cannot wait to discuss this because this makes my heart feel beautiful when I know that there's a way to have a lifelong relationship with your children, even when your role as parenting them or raising them is finished. You can then turn into great friendships, right? Great love. So next, please. And then single parenting and solutions. We know that single parenting is very common. I am one. I've been a single parent for 21 years now. And, I'm always willing to hear more solutions because I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing by my children and by myself as well. I want to make sure that I'm always taking care of myself as well. Because when you're whole, you're able to give. When you're empty, it's kind of hard to give out of an empty vessel. So, okay, next slide, Prina. All right, I'm going to open it up to balancing work and personal life. Take it away.
Balancing work and personal life. As a parent, and if you are especially a working mom, you have to juggle a lot of the things are there in your plate. So prioritizing work and kids and things get so overwhelming. One has to think about creating that time out for their own care. And that's where it's self-care, self-love, what we call about. Especially coming from my own experiences, when I actually deliver after postpartum, I made sure to have that 30-minute walk for myself, and that gave me a really like a good me time for me. And then I was so recharged to go back to my kids and was more energetic to spend that quality time as well. So, and that I have continued. Like if I try to find like some moment in my day that I can just spend for myself, so that actually helps me to re-energize, finding that clarity of like, because once we get overwhelming, you don't know, and you start juggling stuff. So that me time or self-care time routine helps you to again re-energize, find you clarity of what things needed to be prioritized, what it needed to be taken care of for the children, and even in the work life, what needs to be done for yourself. So everything that you get time to like reorganize, clarity, find clarity, and that just having that energy to get back into the routine that you have created for yourself. So I think self-care, especially after postpartum, because we have heard a lot about like postpartum depression, because it gets so overwhelming. Having kids and family, it's not just a 9 to 5 job. It's 24/7. You cannot like you even if you sleep, your thoughts are still there, like next day and for the life. So it's very essential you take that break for yourself, that so that you can give much more to your family, to your kids. Is yeah, I want to share in the self-care.
Yeah, I think that's all very important. Another thing is really setting boundaries, right? So I think people are pretty good at setting boundaries around, this is work and this is home. People have gotten better at that. We've talked about that for a long time. But what a lot of single parents, especially, but just parents in general, don't do is they don't really set boundaries around their time at home. So ensuring that you have time to spend with your friends, that you have time to spend, really where you're focused on your children and you're being present with them. It's not about how much time you spend, it's about the quality of that time, right? So you may have all weekend, but if all weekend includes doing all of the chores around the house and visiting other family or going to a play date or something, you're not really spending any of that time being present with your child. And that's really what they want. Even if it's 5 minutes, this is our special breakfast time, that matters to them and it helps them stay connected to you. So really just thinking about your boundaries, not just as this is my work time and this is my home time or my personal time, but also this is the time that I'm really going to be focused. I'm going to put my phone down. I'm not going to answer texts or scroll on Facebook or whatever. I'm going to actually be present with my child and focus on them and make sure that they know that they're important enough for me to put my phone down and pay attention to. I think,
So, yeah,
yeah.
let's talk about
Christine.
this one.
Everyone shied away immediately. They're like,
Yeah.
oh my God, how do
So
we,
first of all,
yeah.
go ahead, Nisha.
No, I mean, this is a really tough one for me personally. I can say, and even with setting boundaries, you know, Nick, I was listening to you and I was thinking to myself, I I think I'm okay at creating a special moment with my kids, but I don't think I necessarily know how to set a boundary, and that goes hand in hand with delegating tasks. Like, I think I just take it all on. It might be easier for me to say, by the time I explain it to somebody, by the time I show them how to do it, I should just do it myself. But then this like weight is just getting larger and larger on my shoulders because I'm trying to do all of the things. And so I was actually going to say just very openly to the group that I struggle with delegating tasks because I think it might be met with resistance, and I don't even have the courage to see a face of resistance. And so maybe that's a very separate topic, but I don't like the anticipation of that even. And then the second one is I think to myself, okay, well, what is that going to do for me time wise? By the time I explain it, I can do it myself. So I want to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah,
You're
I
100% right. Yeah, go
delegating
ahead.
tasks is so interesting because I just had this this situation with my son. He's
Mm.
special needs, but he's going into middle school, and I realized that I do a lot of things for him that he can actually do for himself, but it's faster if I help him get dressed because we only have 10 minutes between phone calls that I have for work and I need to get him where he needs to be. And we had a conversation oddly in the car, which is not where you want to have important conversations. But I just told him, I said, you're going into sixth grade. You're a big kid now, and there's all these things that you know how to do for yourself, and I'm going to have you start doing them. And he, for whatever reason, thank the gods, he was like, yeah, I can do them. I'm not a baby. I don't need your help. And this morning, got himself ready. I didn't have to do anything. I
Yeah.
mean, it's part of it is, I think of parenting as this grand, expansive letting go. Because over time, you want to transfer all of the tasks that you have to do for a baby, right? Eventually, when they're 18, you don't want to have to do any of those anymore. They
Mm.
need to be able to do them themselves. And it's a process of kind of letting go at each developmental stage. What can they do now? What do they want to do? How do I encourage them to want to do the things that no one wants to do, like sort your laundry or put it away, right? And so it's incentivizing them getting used to doing things for themselves. And really, if we're because I'm a single dad, so I get being the single only parent and having a kid 24/7 with never having a break, and that's hard. And so what tasks can you actually delegate to your kids, right? What things and that pays back. Yeah, it takes more time up front, right? It's just like if you get a new person at work, you have to train them. That takes all your time to train them, and then you're reviewing what they're doing and you're making sure they're doing it right and they're getting all the things that need to be done. It's the same thing with your kids, but it pays off for the rest of their life. So even though it takes more time up front, pick a day where you're not in a rush and have them practice doing things so that it doesn't take 20 minutes to tie your shoes, and I don't have time for that in the morning before I take you to school. So practice. Okay, we're going to race, we're going to see how fast you can tie your shoes, we're going to do it 6 times, and whichever one looks the best, or you're going to try all these different ways and see which one you like the best. Make it fun and make it practice, and then they'll get better. um, and it's messy. It's messy when they're learning things, when they learn how to put the milk in their cereal and they get it all over the floor and the counter, and that's okay. That's how they learn how to handle it. And then, okay, now it's an opportunity to learn how to clean up your mess. So it's constant learning, and it does take more time out of your day. That's true, right? So you have to kind of plan for it.
Mm.
But to slowly sort of let go and let them take on those tasks is really important.
I completely agree. I do. I think I more than I realize it, am and as you said it, like a thought came to my mind. I'm really good at delegating the tasks back to the children, maybe not so much to the other adults in the home, like my partner.
Yeah,
And
that's
like,
harder, right?
yeah,
That's like
that's
telling
where
that's like telling your equal at work to do something. There's a different power dynamic, right? It's okay to tell your kids what to do because that's the role that you have.
yeah,
It's easier
especially
if you
under
sit down and
the,
discuss it. Like these are the things. What do you want to do? Are you tired? I'm tired of doing the dishes. Can you do the dishes? I'll do the other thing, whatever, right? Swap it up. It's
yeah,
easier
I like that. That's practical. I like that. I wanted to say there was one more thing that came to mind. I wish I remember who said it, like who the quote was by, but it was something like, a mother's job is to teach her children to not need her anymore, and the hardest part of that job is accepting success. And of course, that the quote was something to do with the mother, but of course, that's to every parent, and it's that you're building up all of this effort and putting all of this work into making them independent. But when they are independent, and maybe Christine can speak to it because she's more in that chapter of her life now, but when they are independent, what does that feel like? Because it's like a little part of you that's just like living completely outside of you, and they need you in different ways. So that's also comes with its own. But that's the importance of delegating tasks, because that is our role. We do have to teach them and show them the way to do it without us, which is so hard.
Yes. I
And
was
what
gonna comment really quick on the delegating of tasks, and I know we're only on slide 1, so we have to always be conscientious of time, but
Sorry.
here's what happens if you don't delegate tasks when they're little. When they're older, it backfires on you because they're not used to doing the task. And they go, wait, you've always done the dishwasher, Mom. Why are you asking me to do it now? I never do the dishwasher. And then you have to explain to them, well, I probably should have had you learn this, some simple thing of loading, unloading dishes. I'm telling from a personal story. This literally happened with my daughter. She goes, I could have done this for years. I'm like, well, why didn't you? She goes, well, you didn't ask. So, so I did this my whole raising them. But anyway, what I think is to your point, Nisha, we know we can do it well. I've told my children, I could run your life beautifully like a business, but that's not my job. I could have you get into everything on time. You'd have all your clothes done. You'd look fantastic. All your bills would be paid. You'd have gas in your car, but that's not my job. That's my job for me. I hope that I have done enough by leading by example and or giving them good advice and support where they realize that they are capable. And for the most part, I would say my children are, but we have those moments of still delegating tasks. So Prina, why don't you go ahead to the next topic so we can keep moving here. Okay, thanks.
Oh, seek support, my favorite. I do feel that this is not necessarily available to everybody, but I highly encourage people find their own support systems, and it may not come in a very conventional form. But for me, I believe that it really does take a village to raise a child. Maybe it's because I was also raised by what I felt like was a village, but if that's available to you, you have to find your own way. Like I said, whether that's immediate family, a friend circle, you have to find a sense of community, because what that does for you is so many things. So like, I think it'll have an impact on your child's development and thinking, right? Because they're being exposed to different personality types, different people, not just, standard parent caregiver role, because obviously you're set and your job is to also show them that consistency. So you're also not going to flip flop your personality all the time too. So this way other people can pour into your child in a different way. It provides a sense of support, security and belonging that for your child, who then says, okay, so I have, X caregivers at home, mom, dad, or whatever that balance looks like at home. And outside of the immediate family, this is who else I can tap into. This is who else I can go to in a situation where mom and dad might not be accessible, right? Or whoever's immediately in that core nuclear family might not be accessible to them. I also think it helps other people feel involved, and it gives them like responsibility and a sense of hope, especially when it's the elderly. Like if a set of grandparents can be involved at all, or a great aunt and uncle can be involved in any way, I think for them to be able to pour back in, it gives them something to look forward to. So like there's a double benefit there. And then I think that the third is, and the most important, I think in this type of scenario where we're kind of describing this, the parent kind of doing it all, is it gives you a little bit of relief, because if you are able to build a trusted community of people around you that you feel your child is safe with, learning things from, getting love and support from, then your guilt might, I think in my case it does anyway, my guilt slips away because I know they're being very well taken care of in this moment. And maybe all I need is, coming back to the earlier point that Prina was mentioning before, maybe all I need is a half an hour walk to be able to step away. But to be able to get to that self-care moment, your child also needs to be taken care of, especially at a younger age, where you can't just leave them unattended. So to build that network up for yourself from the beginning, I think I've shown, I think it creates quite a large impact. Again, not just for yourself, but for your child and for the other community members that you're involving. So I think there's threefold there. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. I think especially if you introduce other people that are maybe, like you said, farther outside of the like inner family circle or just your friends, um, make sure obviously that they're going to be a good influence, right? That they have the same values that you have. But it really helps when the kids get to be teenagers. I have 3 adult children as well as my youngest, and having somebody that they can go to when they do something that they think they're going to get in trouble about, or they're in an unsafe situation, but they don't want to tell their parents, oh, I was drinking, right? And having that, cool aunt, cool uncle, whatever, right? Cool family friend that's an adult that they can call, because they will, right? During teenage years, they don't, you're the enemy. They're not calling you. You're going to judge them, or you're too old to be cool enough to help them, or whatever it is. There's always a reason, right? And if they have another adult that they trust and they know and they feel connected to, they will reach out to them, and that pays dividends for forever. Yeah. So it's very important to have that structure.
That's good insight. Oh, practice time management. All right, maybe this is the project manager in me, but like I think that I've really got this one down. Maybe not so much the balance that we are talking about earlier, Christine, but time management. I think it helps create moments of, and I love what Nic said earlier, so I'm going to just play off of that for a minute here, but time management enables freedom. And I think a lot of people think it's going to be restrictive, but it creates moments of freedom where I can then be fully focused on one thing at a time because I've blocked out time. And I think there's a couple of different ways to go about this. My family happens to have a shared calendar. I shouldn't say happens to have, we very actively and intentionally have set up a shared calendar and gotten used to everybody being on it. And so I don't have to like wait for a moment of time to say, okay, well, I've got to call my husband, between meetings to ask if this is going to work. I check the calendar because that calendar is the first place we put an update, sometimes even before him and I can have a conversation. And in the notes of it, if we haven't had a conversation, maybe we'll be polite to each other, but it's a great mode of communication. So I'll schedule the event in, and in the body of it, I'll say, I know we haven't had time to talk about this, but putting in the placeholder now, because I'm not going to wait till the end of the day to have this conversation, because life is moving, and especially when you have more than one thing on the go, whether it's your job, multiple kids, multiple activities, I don't want to miss something, and I want it out of my head so that my head can focus on what's right in front of me. So one of the best ways for me to do that personally is by really abiding to and being diligent with updating my calendar. And that's even just thoughts, even just blocking out times for periods of chores, right? Like cleaning, it'll be on there. I'm cleaning the house this day. We're doing the backyard, doing spring cleaning. I've blocked it off. And I even block off, and as funny as it sounds, I've blocked off the calendar for next week, for example. Do not book anything. And I've kept it as a free weekend. And so when we get closer to that date, if someone proposes a plan to us like, hey, did you guys want to join us for a picnic? I'll check with my husband, and I'm going to pretend like we're busy because it's technically blocked off, and I'm going to run the plan by him because we wanted it maybe to be a free weekend, because sometimes you almost need to block out free time. Because I found, especially after the kids were born and after we came out of COVID over here in Canada, it was a bit crazy how long the lockdowns happened for us. When we came out of it, I thought people would have gotten used to not seeing each other, but it was the opposite. And everybody's making plans all the time, and you don't have an excuse or a reason to say no. And you get trapped into saying yes, and guilt kicks in. But really coming back to your calendar helps me to practice time management and create a level set method of prioritization with my partner and with the family. So blocking everything off and creating a visual aid, I think for me helps personally. I've put a calendar, so we all access our Google Calendar, and we've put there's these digital calendars, and I don't want to push any brand here, but you can get a digital display so that it just literally mirrors and it shows whatever you've put in digitally. So like if we're using Google Calendar, it'll display Google Calendar. So I'm not having to update a manual calendar that doesn't have as many details as my Google Calendar. Now I'm creating extra work for myself. So my suggestion with time management is pick a calendar that everybody shares, have a couple of visual cues around the house that are accessible to everybody, and create a sense of create a mode for it to be efficient. So you're not having to replicate your efforts and rewrite the calendar in so many different ways. But blocking out periods of time, I think, for specific activities, including chores and personal time, is a great way to go about seeing what's ahead of you and planning accordingly. So if you already know that, the week after you have a big party you're throwing, well, then this weekend you have to clean for it. So like creating a work back plan is much easier to do when you see everything is calendarized.
It's beautiful.
That's actually really interesting. Tweak or like insight you gave, Nisha, because that's something I'm struggling. I'm good with delegating to my partner, but I haven't figured out. I mean, we do share, we do talk, but that it's not like that's like very nice sharing that calendar, because right now that's what I'm struggling is like if we are working, then something on my mind that I need to talk. And then because at the night again it's like a different routine, so it just keep rolling over on something that I still need to discuss. There is very small point, but it just keep rolling over, and it's been like days passes by, and then it's keeps piling onto your head, right? Because it's one task you have still not got over, and that's very small. And imagine there are list of tasks that happen and that you pile up just to talk to your husband, but or the partner or somebody else, like a family members. And then you also have to manage other stuff, but you also have to do your work. So that's a really good insight into time management.
Yeah, your rollover point is right too. I'm right on there. Everything just piles up and I'm like, oh my God, I still didn't get to that. And then, yeah, it's something that weighs on you. Again, for me, it's the weight.
And then we feel guilty, and then we feel angry at ourselves, and then we lash out at the loved ones that we have in our family. Oh yeah, it's just a big snowball effect.
And
For sure.
that small thing reminds me when I'm doing meditation. So it also block my meditation or the self-care time that
Yes.
I'm having, like, oh, I need to do this, this, this. And I cannot focus on the things that might have dedicated. So that's a really good.
Good point.
Okay, let's get moving to the next topic. All right, the co-parenting strategies. What do we have as the first one?
Communication.
Anybody want to chat about this one? Why is communication important? What do we think is the reason we need good communication?
Well, I would think co-parenting can be in the same house or it can be in different houses, right? We don't necessarily call it co-parenting usually, at least in the US. We don't call it co-parenting when we're talking about like a couple raising children. We just call it parenting. But you're really always sort of co-parenting unless there's no other adult involved, right? Even if you have your parent is helping you raise your child, then you're still co-parenting, right? Because anybody who's spending that kind of time with your child, you want them to have the same kinds of values that you have. You want to be on the same page about what you're teaching them and what's appropriate. So communicating is definitely really important. And I think sadly a lot of couples don't talk about parenting before they need to. They don't talk about it before they have children. And I think in some ways that's a lot of reason why relationships don't last, because they struggle with having different strategies, different ideas and expectations of how they're going to parent and what's important to them. So communication is huge.
Really good. All right, what's the next topic on here? Oh, anybody want to share about consistency and why it matters?
I can do that for the next one too. Like they kind of go together. I think the next
Yeah.
one is boundaries, right? Setting boundaries or respecting boundaries, something like that.
Prina, you want to go forward to the third one?
Flexibility. Okay, so I think everybody knows that consistency is how you sort of set things, right? So when they stay with you is when you do them the same way every time, right? Having that consistency is really important for kids in general. And it's important for you because now you all know what to expect, and that makes everybody's anxiety level go down. So consistency is really important. When when you set like a boundary or a rule in your house, and then you break the rule, or you allow them to break the rule because, oh, they've been so good, or whatever, it's confusing for kids. It feels to you like you're giving them this great benefit, and it's so nice that you're relaxing this rule for the weekend or whatever, but actually it's confusing for them, because then they think, oh, it's not really a rule, right? Like the speed limit sign does not change because it's Friday afternoon. You had such a great week, now you can go faster, right? We're not going to give you any tickets. Like that's not how it works. It's a rule for a reason. So wherever you can be consistent, the better. It's, and flexibility is important though too, right? Sometimes things happen and you have to teach your kids and maybe yourself how to cope with changing schedules, changing expectations. Things come up and now you have to be flexible, and doing that with another person, especially if they're not in the same home with you, but sometimes it's just as difficult when they're standing right next to you. You've got to allow room for things that come up for them and things that they want to do or that matter to them. And being flexible is really important, right? Ultimately, you want to focus on what's the best thing for my child or children. And so, making sure that they get time to do all of the fun things with both parents is really important.
I think even with the consistency and flexibility, like keeping that like consistent schedule, for example, right? Like their nap time, their meal time helps them to like keep in check, because then if it is off, then like you have to like, put other efforts to make them feel comfortable and everything. So consistency comes there. So again, like going back to communication, having that communicated well, that this is their routine, so we can stick. I mean, of course, there would be always a like, there's a time that like 30 minutes around that, like you can be flexible on that. And flexibility comes in when like sometimes one partner has to go out, or sudden like there's a meeting or something comes up, so then they should be flexible of taking over. The kids are, I want to go, maybe like I want to go for a grocery shopping, then I can just put them into the stroller around their nap time, so they are not like just used to like sleeping maybe in the bedroom, but also in the stroller. So that is one example, like, but like a consistency, communication, flexibility, it's very like, once it's communicated well, then we can create that consistencies. And also we can also communicate if something comes up, then we are flexible enough that other partner can take over on what needed for their children as well.
I wanted to comment on something really quickly. What I'm looking at when I see this communication, consistency, and flexibility, these are coming from the parent, right? We're talking about if we do this as an example, as we're raising our children, and we keep these in mind, what ends up happening is our children learn these skills as well. Because I'm looking at it thinking, okay, I've had open communication with my children since they were little, and my daughter has special needs as well, right? So she, according to the physicians, when she was first diagnosed, she needed consistency. So when I was co-parenting with my ex-husband, we had to keep her in the same house to have that routine so she would feel comfortable, right? But because my job is so chaotic with travel, she also saw me exhibiting flexibility. So ends up now she's 25. She is consistent in several things, but she's also really flexible. So you would think an adult with autism, they can't handle when things get out of routine. She can, you know why? Because she grew up seeing consistency as much as possible with flexibility, taught her to have a routine, but also have flexibility. So we're giving these as gifts to our children if we really keep these in the forefront of how we're raising them. So that's my comment.
Yeah, modeling on top of, when something changes, if you just say, oh, well, normally we would do nap time right now, or, normally we would go to this thing, but something's come up and we need to do this first, and we're flexible, we can be flexible, huh? Right? Like you're building in that, like, this is how we do it, and this is what we think about it. And that way it doesn't become this like, no. And if you're angry about having to change your schedule, they're going to pick up on that too.
Yes.
Yeah, so well said. I was just thinking while you were saying, I'm like, I think I should be telling myself that. I need to, oh, I can do this, huh? I can be flexible, huh? Like I have to give myself that pep talk. I love it.
You
Yeah.
should speak to yourself kindly, right? We
Yeah.
need to.
Yeah. and like encouragingly, because otherwise I think it's like a issue I have personally with maybe a lack of flexibility. I like things to go to a certain plan because I've prepared myself that way. And you're right, of course the kids will pick up on my rigidity if that's
Yeah.
the case, you know. So
Right, let's keep going here because we've got two more on this topic. Go ahead, Nick.
For this one specifically, I just think, you know, different people are going to have different boundaries for themselves. They're going to have different things that they're comfortable with and not comfortable with. Having that communication and discussing what are those things, where are the boundaries? What, you know, what do you want to share if you're, you know, if you're talking about two different people in different homes, you know, are we going to talk to each other about when we bring someone else into our home? Like if we're dating someone, is there a certain amount of time we're waiting before they're being introduced to our children and being around our children? And respecting that, you know, what you think about that situation or any situation might be really different than what the other person thinks. So having a conversation about it, you know, and it might be after the fact, right? Because often we don't know we've hit a boundary until we have a response. We're like, that doesn't feel right. I don't like that. And then we have to figure out, okay, what is it about that? You know, and then you can have the conversation. Hey, you know, when this happened, I know we haven't talked about it before, but I think we need to talk about it. And what do we both feel is appropriate? And how do we, you know, how do we compromise that? So, you know, that each person has a right to their own boundaries, and so does your kid, right? We don't really think about kids having their own boundaries, but this is why a lot of people grow up and don't know how to have boundaries because they're not really allowed them as children. So, respecting that your child has boundaries too. This can be as simple as, you know, not forcing them to hug or sit on people's laps or, you know, whatever, right? If they're not comfortable, and they say, you know, they don't want to give someone a hug or they're just not in the mood for that. They don't want to be touched. They don't want to sit on someone's lap. It makes them feel weird. Whatever those things are, listening and saying, okay, well, it's your body. You get to set the boundaries, is really important to teach them that they have that power. So that's important to just kind of respect all of the people's boundaries in the situation that you're in. That's always the hardest, right?
Yeah. Yep.
We feel strongly about our kids. You know, we want the best for them, but we don't always, those things that we think are the best for them don't always align with the other people involved in raising them.
That
So
is so true. That is so true. I was going to share that, and I'll be brief. You know, the support system that we talk about, how important it is. There's also the times that might come up in some circumstances where the support system is not there because they deliberately disagree with your choices as a parent. I have an example for that. My parents live on different parts of the country. My parents are divorced. My mom lives in my state. My dad lives in another part of the country. There have been several times throughout the last 20 something years that they have completely disagreed with my choices of how I live my life and how I raise my children. That's tough when your support system doesn't necessarily support you. So that's when, back to what you had said, Nisha, is you've got to find your community, your tribe that will support you, that when you don't have the support from someone that you love, you have to say, okay, I've got to make sure that keep your emotions in check, right? Don't let anybody see you crack. Keep those in check, but find those support areas where you can. Okay. Anybody else have any comments before we go to the next slide?
I would just say the most important thing about co-parenting is not talking badly about your co-parent to your children or around them.
Yeah.
You know, it gets emotional, you get upset, that's fine, but you want to kind of try to do that separately because it's not your relationship with their other parent or their other caregiver or whoever else is, you know, in this situation with you is not the same as their relationship with that person. And whatever's happened between you is not, it's really none of your children's business. So, you know, keeping that separate, having conversations if you need to have them where the children aren't going to overhear you is really important, especially in the beginning when you're first kind of going through something, because usually there's some kind of breakup, right, in the majority of these situations. So it's really difficult managing your own emotions, but just try to keep your kids out of it. It's none of their business. And what they really need is to see that you guys, you know, that you've modeling that it's possible to not be with someone and still treat them with respect and love because they're somebody who matters in your family because they matter to your children.
And I will also like to add, like what you just mentioned about, like, like keeping your emotion intact when you are, especially not talking bitter of other partner and all. But what I realize is sometimes you also have to acknowledge those emotions. So it's where our emotional intelligence topic also comes in. And as a mother, one moment I saw, I was very emotionally overwhelmed, and my kid came in, was asking something, showing something or something, and I was not in that mind space of addressing what he was saying. So I just told him, would you just take a moment because I'm right now not in that space? And he respected that. And he went away, he started playing. And then when I calm myself down, I went him, then we had our own conversation. So it's not always like, shut your emotion, but it's always also good to like showcase that to your children in a more healthy way, that how you can still show your emotion, but keeping check in there. And because having emotion is very natural, it's human, but how you can go about it, right? So that's what we also tell to our children. Hey, if you're angry, think about it. Once you are calmed down, let's talk about it, right? So it's both ways. We are making sure that whatever we are feeling, it's not overwhelming, but we are also keeping in check as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You're modeling how to manage the emotions too, right? Which they need to
Yes.
see as
Yes. All right, let's get to the next slide. We've got 15 minutes left. I think we can certainly do this good. I know we can. All right, nurturing healthy relationships with our children.
I would love to chat on this. I find that there's a couple of different things that I do to spend quality time. And we spoke about this early. It's like not a matter of the quantity. I completely agreed with Nick. You don't have to spend, an entire full day with the kids. You still have responsibilities that you need to get to. It's really about making a large effort on prioritizing and showing up with focus and true intention in that time that you've blocked off for one another. And for me personally, there's a couple of different ways I do that. First, at the beginning, I thought that, for example, I love to read. So I thought, okay, great. Well, reading is going to be our thing. But it worked for my first kid and it didn't work for my second kid, who's not into that. And I very quickly learned that everybody's different. And like I should have already known that, right? But it was just a very obvious reminder that everybody's idea of a fun, good quality time is different. And then I thought, you know what? As a family, we should do the love languages quiz. I had everybody do it so that we could figure out how different people want to be shown love and receive love. And so while, of course, as the parent, I don't need my child to show me love the way I want to receive it, I was very much shocked and surprised in the best possible ways of how my child wanted to receive love. And I really quickly changed the way I was spending time with my second born. And now I carve out individual time for the both of them and do different things with them. So one wants like words of affirmation. And so right before bed, we do a rose bud thorn, which is what was the best part of your day? What was the worst part of your day? And what are you looking forward to? And for my little one who doesn't really want to do that at all, he doesn't want to like talk about his feelings or talk about his day or be poured into that way. He wants chores and activities done with him. And so every time I'm about to go grocery shopping, and I know that sounds like it's a chore, but he gets so excited to be my helper. And we're having all these conversations and all these stories about what happened at school come out while we're doing an activity like that together, which I would not have ever expected. I was trying to do the groceries while they were at school. I would do it on my lunch break, but once I had to do it with him by accident. And when I realized that was his love language, I was like, oh my God, I need to start combining these two things. So the love languages was just my way of figuring out the best way to do it. And my suggestion to everybody, if they're open to one, is to get curious, right? The first step we say about everybody in every brand new relationship, including a relationship with your child, is that they're different at every stage. So if you continuously remain open to the idea of being curious about who they are and how they want to be loved and how they want to share time with you, then you can keep pivoting what that strategy and what that time looks like. Why not? And it's good for you too, because I think you become more flexible and not so rigid as somebody like me might be. It opens up your eyes that love is not just like this one way that we're used to, which is the way we know how we want to be loved, and we're so used to sitting in that box. So I think that's a really good way to approach quality time with them, to find out what they really want to do. and finding a special way to connect with them one-on-one, and maybe even as simple as labeling it that. Like, we're going to get our special time later today, and I can't wait for it. And if that special time is reading the book or that conversation or going grocery shopping, you can also talk about the anticipation of it. Because sometimes, and we've discussed this before in many different ways with one another, including our clients, it's not just the actual goal, the actual thing, but looking forward to the thing is just as exciting. And so maybe sharing that and communicating that openly with the person you're trying to show love with is, I can't wait for our time, whether it's later today or whether it's at the end of the week. I can't wait for that special 2 hours that we've set aside where we're going to the park together, and showing them that you're looking forward to it just as much as they are. I think that's also a different way of showing them love.
It's awesome.
That was cute.
Okay, next one.
Active listening. I think what you, Nisha, mentioned here, active listening. When I actually started my parenthood journey, initially I started reading through the book and everything. But once my baby born, I didn't have time to read. And what I just started doing, just listening what that baby needs. And then after I have not, I mean, of course, like you do take a help of like if you're struggling with something, then you Google or go to some form of resources. But I realized my baby is the biggest cue that I had to follow. Listening to what their needs are from the baby. Now my older one is 5-year-old. My youngest is like around 2 year. So just trying to understand, because they know themselves better. We just have to follow and provide that, right? We are here to provide, we function as a more of provider, nurturer. So it's more about what their needs are, right? Like it's like when we are doing gardening, one plant need more water, one plant need more sunlight. So it's like the same with the kids. It's like why they are being fuzzy, even if they are being fuzzy, but is there something? So if we cannot like just go around and like struggle with what is going on, because once we start struggling and don't know, following different resources, this work for this mom, this work, and when I'm saying mom, because that's what I personally like connect to, it's because I read about, then we still gonna be like reading, but we are not listening to our child needs. So I think when I started listening to what my child needs, I find that connection more stronger, because now I'm there to understand his needs, even his emotions, and just be there. And then it also like combined with like what you just mentioned about, Nisha, like spending that quality time. Each person has different like love language. So once you start listening to their needs, you will also understand their love language, how they want to spend time, and your relationship gonna grow more beautifully, and you will see a less friction uh moving forward. Of course, there would be like in different stages, it would always be like you're figuring out, and the best cue is to start listening to what their needs are. When I was expecting my second baby, my like oldest one was going through like his emotion roller coaster journey, and he was at that age of 4, where he started understanding a lot of stuff. And with these changes, it was very hard. I'm like, why you are acting like this? Why you are showing this tantrum, or why you are behaving like this? And then I realized my voice also getting like more and more frustrated. I'm like, why you're not listening? And then one day I'm like, okay, stop. I'm not gonna, okay, not reacting to what he's going to, because I understand these are a lot of changes that is going around, because he's also growing. And at the same time, a lot of equation in the house has also changed, because he's not only child. Now the attention is divided, and a lot of things that also comes in. So what I started like, give him a break, try to understand, okay, I hear you. Are you feeling this? Are you thinking this? And sometimes you don't even have to talk, just spend time. When I started spending more time, just giving that like attention that or care or love that he needed, he started behaving differently, and I didn't have to like start explaining stuff. and my own emotions got like, under control and all. So it's just figuring out what their needs are by just like following their own cues. It's something, your relationship gonna go like evolve from that beautifully.
Wonderfully said.
We've got about 7 minutes left. All right, go ahead, Nisha. I think you were going to chat about this.
Yeah, show affection, my favorite. This comes back to love languages, I will say, because not everybody, and I love what Nic said earlier, not everybody wants to greet somebody with a hug. And so same ways, like, even though I am obsessed and I want to squish them and hug them, I think it's only fair to understand it comes back to active listening too, whether it's verbally or with other different physical cues that your child gives you. You have to find a way that is comfortable for both parties. And I know at the beginning, especially when they can't communicate, you have that endless opportunity to squish and hug and kiss. But I do very much take the effort to check in with my boys to make sure that the way that I'm loving them. So if I'm squishing them and I get a mama stop, I immediately stop is stop, and it's safe and it's key. So while I'm showing affection my way, what I'm really suggesting here is people need to tune into how others want to be shown affection. And that's with love notes, comes back to love languages. What's the best way for you to show affection to somebody is the way they want to receive it. That has to be the way, and the only way to find that out is to pay attention to clues and cues, or ask them straight up if you're unclear. Like, I do this to show you love. How does it make you feel? Do you feel loved, or do you feel uncomfortable when I do it this way? Maybe less leading. Maybe you should ask them first. Like, how do you feel? And then explain that you did it to show them love so they can give you an honest, genuine answer. But I think there are many ways to show affection. And I think that for me personally, I'm a very physical touch person. So I love getting messy, get in there, a pat on the back if it's not a hug, a tap on the hair, a stroke here and there, like just to show them that I'm there and it's safe and I'm caring. But I think another great way is to get down on the same level as them. If it's not a hugging moment, to just show them eye to eye that we're on the same level. I sit on the floor with them a lot when I'm speaking with them. I whisper closely when I speak with them. I think that's other great ways to show somebody, not just my children, but that I care, is to like get as close as possible to make the setting and the conversation as intimate as possible. Sometimes, Nic, that's the car too, right? Because like there's like this like kind of distance between us. And I know that's not the best, most, intimate way to have a conversation, but sometimes it's the safest way because we don't have to make all this direct eye contact. And I know the topic might be too touchy for me to do that. So I can show them affection by at a distance almost too, by showing them that I care and I'm here with my words, and we don't have to be like hand in hand while we're having it, or eye contact if it's a little bit uneasy of a time. But what I wanted to say with this point was showing affection is very important also in the midst of a fight. And because everybody knows, like, we're here to show love, but one of the things I do is when we're in the middle of a heated argument, and yeah, I'm human, I'm not a super perfect parent and by any means, things get heated. And while I try to keep my emotions in check, they still know when I'm upset because it's a flat tone. They know they've broken some rules or some boundaries. I always make it a point to show affection before we leave that conversation, even if they're being told to like take some time apart, go and take a breath. I also don't want them leaving with the feeling of being isolated. So I use that opportunity to make sure we're very connected. And I tell them, even though we're not agreeable in this moment, mama still loves you and always will. We could be at the opposite ends of the earth on this topic, but that love is not gone. So I said that so often when they were, and they're still very little now, they're 7 and 5 now, that my 5-year-old says, like in the middle of like getting in trouble, he's almost cheeky about it. He'll turn to me and say, we're in a fight, but you still love me. And I'm like, I do. You still got to go to your room and clean that mess up though. So you better get to it. But it's good because he's like turned it into a joke now, but jokes come from truth. So although he's like kind of mocking me with it, I know that he knows and that we're safe and that the love hasn't stopped in the middle of that heat, that the affection still exists and it can never be touched.
Is it possible for us to cover all of these great topics? Because I wish we had another hour. Do we have some time to, Nisha, I want to hear you finish this one. Let's finish this slide up and then let's get to the other things, just quickly overview. We'll just maybe, Prina, if you want to show them all at one time, but Nisha, go ahead and cover these two if you'd like to, and then we'll kind of wrap it up quicker.
Okay, I'll be super quick.
Oh, I love these. Yeah.
Oh,
sorry.
Independence. I wanted to say just really quickly too, when you were talking about showing affection, that process and modeling those things can actually help start the conversation about consent, right? That they have right? And boundaries. So that leads into both of those things, that their body is their own and they're the only one who gets to say what happens to it and with it, and that they're comfortable or not comfortable. So that is really nice, because if you build in that consent conversation, then it's not some weird topic that's only related to, sex or, dating or, whatever, when they're a teenager and they're not listening to anyway. So it really starts to build in that sense of like, you have autonomy over your body and so does everyone else. And that really helps. So that's a really good boundary that I was actually going to talk about too, but I like the way that you said it. It just kind of hold it all together. The other thing I wanted to say about boundaries and independence is that often we think when we set boundaries with kids that we're being mean, right? That we're telling them all the things they can't do. And that's not really true. What we're doing is we're showing them, like I said before, that letting go process. I'm holding on to these things, but they're your things. Tying your shoes is not it's my job until you can do it. So it's handing back things to them, and setting those boundaries is a constant thing, right? You're consistently changing where the boundary is on what you're doing for them and what they're expected to do. So you're kind of having these conversations about, these are my expectations. This is where the boundary is. So for example, if you're going to the store and your kid has meltdowns in the store, you can say, before you go in, we're going into the store. My expectation is that you're not going to have, that we're going to talk. And if you get too upset, you can tell me with your words and we'll go outside and take a break. But if you start screaming or throwing things, then we're going to leave. And next time I'm going to come to the store without you, right? If it's something they want to go do. So then you're setting that expectation, you're setting both of you up for success, and then you just follow through on what you're doing. And what this really helps with as well in the relationship is when you set a boundary, they learn there's consequences, good or bad, to their choices, that their choices matter, right? Because they get to choose what they do. You can't force them to, no one can control anyone else, much to our, sadness sometimes. So if they're going to do whatever they want to do, right? But now they know what to expect, and they can weigh those decisions. That's what we do as adults all the time. We get angry because they make a choice that we didn't like, or they chose not to do the thing we wanted them to do. But instead of getting upset and making it a problem and a personal issue between you, you just follow through with the consequences. And they learn those consequences exist outside of you. And that way it doesn't impact in a negative way your relationship with them. You're not the bad guy. You're not the one who's always punishing them, especially between different parents where there's like a good parent and a bad parent, kind of situation going on. That really helps, because it's not about which parent, these are the consequences for this behavior, period. And it happens, I just have to, it's just the way it works. And that's the way the whole world works. So if you set that up, then it's not about between the two of you. And so it doesn't impact in a negative way your relationship. It just becomes the way that you expect things to happen.
Beautiful. Prina, I wonder if we can just show the next slide, because we're going to have to end the call here. We should certainly have a second one of these, because this has been so engaging and fabulous. But I think we did kind of cover single parenting challenges and solutions, didn't we? Yeah, in finances, yeah. Emotional support, we covered all of that. This is good. Okay. And we covered difficulties. Look at that, aren't we something? Okay, let's go to the next slide real quick.
I think then that's like more of
That's-
each how we can, its category is like a solution to that, but we already
Yeah.
covered. So I think we might have missed the financial state for the single parenting, if someone wants to bring that up, so that I think for all the topics we did discuss and covered in
Great
different.
idea. Yeah. Who wants
Yeah,
to?
I don't
Go
have
ahead.
anything specific to, obviously your financial situation is whatever it is, right? And it can be really limiting and difficult when you're one person. I think everybody has learned through COVID and the housing boom thing that has happened since then. All the housing prices have gone up. There's for where I live, rents have gone up by 300%. It's really hard to manage a budget when things are skyrocketing, right? And you maybe can't have to live with a roommate because you can't afford to live by yourself with your children. So there's a lot of things there, but I think one of the things is that we often think our children need us to buy them things. They need to have all of these things to be happy, and that's not really true. They would rather have your time and attention. They, take them to the dollar store instead of to Walmart or Target or someplace where things are, at least $15 to $20 before you're going to get anything. They can get a lot of things right? You go in with $5 and they can get a bunch of stuff at the dollar store, and it's, and then you just play with it, or you do a art project with it, something that you're going to spend time with them doing. That's really what they want. It's not about how much money, because for a long part of their development, they don't even understand money, right? They don't understand how you work or what you get paid or how that translates into food and rent, or and money left over to buy them toys. They don't really understand any of that for a really long time. So it's really just about doing things with them. Going to the park is always free. So, doing the stuff like that, you can still spend time with them. That's really what they're looking for. It's not about, how much money you spent on them this week.
So
think-
true.
Completely agree.
Go ahead,
You,
Nisha.
that's very interesting point, because as a single parent, you want to provide and give everything for your kids. But once you start comparing and start feeling guilty about my kid don't have this, the comparison is what. So you have to first understand financial situation of your creating that monthly budget, what is actually, and prioritizing that, right? What is actually important, where to spend that. And then once you have that priority and monthly budget intact, and then you can see like from there, because kids need, as you mentioned, experiences. So a lot of experiences are free: going to park, going for walk, creating spending time coloring, making puzzles. I mean, puzzles like you can still get in a cheaper, or like just like finding that things in a creative way. And I think once you get creative with that idea of like spending quality time, you don't feel guilty of like not having this and that. And uh, again, going back to seeking support, because if you're a working parent, you always want someone to find that community where you can find a support that you can feel comfortable to have your children to be taken care of when you are working. So it's all the things that you also have to think of when you are also creating your financial uh, budget and all.
Absolutely. Thank you, Prina. Nisha, anything you wanted to say, final thoughts on
I
any
was
of
just
the?
I loved what everybody said about this point, especially because even if you're a single parent or not, everyone should be mindful of how they're going to spend their money and what's really shaping their kids right now. And it's the quality of time over anything. Even if you had tons of money, you should really be mindful as to, what you're putting in. Are you showing them the definition of love is the over gifting, the most expensive pair of, you are also demonstrating that. So whether it's single or triple or double, no matter how many people are involved in it, and no matter what the actual finances are, I would suggest to take a close look. You want to be the person that you wish you had at that age. You don't need a room full of things that you can discard. So that's it.
So true. My children have grown up, we do experiences. So our Christmas presents are experiences, that they have the memory versus the thing. And they say that that's their favorite way of getting, presents for birthdays or holidays, is because they know that it's time together, time with mom, time with their siblings. So I agree 100%. And that's free, right? Well, I guess I'm going to have to wrap this up. I'm sad to do it because this was a wonderful discussion.
Yeah.
This was a great conversation among all of us. And first of all, Amanda, thank you for joining. So great to have you here every month sharing with us. And I want to thank Nisha. I want to thank Prina. I want to thank Nic. This has been such an encouraging time for me to learn skills that I didn't even think about. So I want to thank you all for sharing from your life experiences, from your expertise, and from your hearts today. And I hope that everyone that's having a chance to see this on YouTube or live has had the same experience that I've had, which has just been to receive and feel we are so loved that we have this opportunity to learn from others of just how important it is to be a whole person ourselves, so that we can give to those in our lives, such as our children or our partners or our loved ones. So thank you all for joining. I hope this was beneficial, and we'll see you again on the next episode, the next time that we have this next month as well. So thank you again. Have a good one.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you,
Yes,
Christine.
thank
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Are you done recording, Prina?
Let me see. I think
I think you did, right? All right. Oh, we're still recording.
okay.
Thank you.
It's done.
Okay.